going to talk about 3 lies that neurodivergent people tell themselves, right? And this is, people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, I can't even say a word correctly. And so the first lie that I have here is I'm not capable of being self-sufficient. So a lot of neurodivergent individuals tell themselves this, and I've told myself this before, right? And I'm coming from an ADHD perspective where I felt like I would never be self-sufficient because I always relied on too many people for stuff, right? I was the type of adult that was 25 years old, and then like I would be at the doctor's office and I would call my mom. I'm like, Mom, what type of insurance do we have? Blue Cross, Blue Sheet, I relied on I'm a mama's boy, right? So I'm relying on my mom for this. When I was in grad school, trying to get this doctorate degree, I was living at home for the first 2 years. So my brothers would literally make me breakfast, because I'm always behind, I'm late. I need help from all these people, right? And we have to understand that as a human being, you're going to need help from every single person, right? Everybody will help you, and likewise, you'll help out other people. But when you've had a long day, right? You've lost your keys, you had to pay a late fee, or maybe let's say you have autism and maybe you had a day where you had a lot of weird social interactions, right? And you feel like you don't have any friends, you don't have anybody to do stuff with, right? You feel like you're not self-sufficient, right? Or you're not capable of doing that. But that's a lie. And you are capable of being self-sufficient, right? I will say this part right here, right? When it comes to autism, it's on a spectrum, right? So people say things like, we used to use the term Asperger's, right? So you have like high function and low, all these different things, right? But it really is just autism spectrum disorder. So there's people who have autism, right? And they are able to do much more for themselves. And some people need more help. But even for the autistic individual who needs a lot of help, there are still things that you can do for yourself. Maybe you need a little bit of help from other people, right? But we have to realize that we can do for ourselves. There's always something that we can do for ourselves, right? And there's a pride that comes with doing things on your own for yourself, right? But we will need help. Don't be like, all right, I can't take any help from anybody, right? But there's so much that we can do that we probably don't give ourselves credit for. The second lie that neurodivergent individuals tell themselves is, I cannot live the quality of life that I want. This is something that I also struggle with, right? And every now and then you'll say things that show that you don't believe in yourself, right? Or, for example, I might tell myself, I'll say, oh, I'm always going to be wasteful and waste money and things like that. Now, I understand that I have ADHD, so like I pay a lot of late fees. And if I forget to auto pay something, I'm going to pay a late fee when, I get to it, or I'm going to pay a ticket. It just happens, right? But after you recognize patterns and you ask for help, just because you might be spacey, for lack of a better term, it doesn't mean that you can't live the quality of life that you want. You can. You just need help from certain people. Right? So you have to be willing to ask for help when necessary, but you also have to believe in yourself, right? Like a lot of times the worst thing that I see when it comes to anything mental health related is when I'll see somebody online and I dig through the comment section. It doesn't have to be my video. I'll look through the comment section late at night. I'll just be digging deep to see. I'm just curious, right? I'll see things like people tell themselves stuff like, oh, I'm never going to be able to find somebody that I can date. I'm unbearable to live with. I'm unable to do this and that. The words that we say of ourselves are very important, right? You can say, oh, I'm not able to do this at this moment, but in the future, I'm going to do better, right? The things that you say are very important. I haven't been able to be early to this and that, but in the future, I will be able to do this, right? We can live a high quality of life, right? It may be a bit more difficult, right? I don't want to lie to you all, right? It's like when somebody asked me a question about having borderline personality disorder and how to have a relationship, right? I said, you can have BPD and still have a successful relationship. Is it going to take more work? Yes, I think it's going to take a lot more work. I don't want to say it's going to take significantly more work. All relationships take work, right? But if you have BPD, you have to, things like DBT can help, maybe meds or whatever the game plan is, but you can have a successful relationship. It's just going to take more work. It's kind of like a quarterback in the NFL. If right now Bryce Young is going to be the #1 pick, that's what they're saying. He's going to go to Carolina, right? He's 5'10", which is short for a quarterback, right? So does he have to work a bit harder? He got to work a bit harder, but he's still going to be the #1 pick in the draft, we think, right? Because he's a good quarterback. So even if you have some things about you that make it harder to do something, it doesn't mean that you have no chance to do that thing, right? We have to put a little bit more work in it, and that's fine. That's fine. But masking is just a way of fitting in, right? In this world, you'll realize that there's a way that most people are. And if you are like most people, you'll be accepted more. So what you start to do is you start to cover up things about yourself that might be quirky or kind of weird, right? And as you masking, you do it to survive. Like sometimes we have to mask to survive. So you do it over and over. And after a while, you realize that, when when you're making friends or when you're making connections, people are accepting you for the version of yourself that you put out there. So sometimes you question yourself and you ask yourself, do people really love me, or do they love the version of myself that I'm putting out there? So masking, it's not something that we want to do for long periods of time, but we do it as a survival, mechanism, something that we do to be accepted by other people, right? And for women with ADHD, especially, sometimes if you're a female and you've been diagnosed with ADHD late in life, if you can just drop the age that you're diagnosed in the comment section, so that way people who are not familiar know what I'm talking about. But if you just drop the age in there, and I'll just click it. But women with ADHD sometimes have to wait until their 30s to be diagnosed, and sometimes even later than that, right? Whereas their male counterparts might be diagnosed in second grade, right? So second grade versus 37 years old, big gap there. That's decades of having to mask, and that gets pretty tiring.